All right, everyone, welcome back to Mavs Sports Take episode 4. Ryan Roberts here, Rise and Draft on Twitter with my good friend David Turner at Mav_sports. Ryan Roberts, Director of Scouting at NFL Draft Bible, NFL Draft Writer for the Fantasy Draft Room. Also, a bunch of exciting seminars that I have the fortune of hosting every third week with Mr. Brian Baldinger. And on his Baldy's Breakdown segment, and part of NFL Draft Bible. And then we also do Friday Night Scout School every Friday, 9 Eastern time with my good friend here, Mr. David Turner. And I'm going to read off the list of accolades for this man. Every week, it gets better and better. So, David is a former professional scout for the Miami Dolphins, Oakland Raiders, Carolina Panthers, New York Giants, and San Francisco 49ers. For 18 years in the scouting industry. He was also part of 3 straight Arena League titles with the Arizona Rattlers as the Director of Player Personnel and Assistant General Manager. A brief stop with the Edmonton Eskimos as well in the CFL. He's now the owner-president of Maverick Sports Consulting, as well as the Director of Player Personnel with the ANC American National Combines. And, of course, saving the best for last, my partner in crime, as I said, on Friday Night Scout School. David, we talk about first every week, right? And this is our first double interview segment of Mavs Sports Take. How are you tonight, my friend? How excited are we for another adventure into the sports world with the one and only Ryan Roberts?
One and only Ryan Roberts. Again, don't let this man fool you. He has got credentials out the wazoo. For such a young man, this is an impressive young resume by Ryan Roberts. And tonight, bam, we're bringing you not 1, but 2 key interviews, bringing it live to you here on Mavs Sports Take. If you're watching us on Twitter, if you're watching us on live, I hope you're going to enjoy this show as much as I'm going to enjoy being part of it. But I hope, Ryan, you had your energy drink. Hope you had your cup of coffee, because it's going to be a long night here. We got great guests coming up. I mean, think about it. We got the former director of college scouting for the Oakland Raiders, and he's coming on to talk about how the environment of college football, the environment of pro football, a little bit of what he's up to right now, which is going to be helping young men and women in their next adventures in life. I'll let him get into it because I'm sure I'll screw it up. And then we got a player who's already made a decision to opt out, enter into the NFL draft, and we're bringing this to you on episode 4 ever of Mavs Sports Take. I mean, this is coming off of having Tom Pelissero on last week, and now this. I mean, come on. It doesn't get much better than this. Our guests are just flocking to this show, and it's exciting to be part of it. It's just happening so organically. I appreciate it a whole lot. So when you're ready, sir, let's get it.
I can't wait, man. And the juice is definitely doesn't need to be faked this week, man. We have 2 great interviews. Of course, Brad Kaplan, who we're about to bring on in a second. Also, Danny Godlevske. Oh man, I'm gonna butcher his name when I introduce him, but it's Godlevske, a all-MAC selection at center for Miami, Ohio. I am super pumped to be able to bring him on. I really am a huge fan of his as a 2021 NFL prospect. We're going to talk a little bit about him and his teammate, Mr. Doyle, the offensive tackle, who's also made the same decision to enter the draft, to forego a potential spring season, obviously with the MAC pushing back until the spring. So without further ado, I'm going to queue up our first guest of tonight, Mr. Brad Kaplan. Brad, who David knows a ton from, obviously, in the scouting world. We're going to be proud to bring him on tonight. He's a former college scouting director for the Oakland Raiders. During his tenure with the Raiders, they drafted players such as Khalil Mack, Amari Cooper, Derek Carr, and many others. Brad is now the scouting director at Athletes Launch, a new technology which we'll get into to help athletes launch their post-playing careers. Brad is also a graduate of Cal Poly. So, Brad, I see him. He's on the screen. He's ready to go. I know, Brad, you're well connected, obviously, with David. I'm so excited I can't even spit it out, man. Brad, first and foremost, man, appreciate you coming on with us tonight.
Thank you so much, guys. And Ryan, you probably need to take a little break after you have to shoot out all of David's resume there. You know, you got to have a built-in break for that.
It could be a podcast in amongst itself, just David's credentials. It's crazy. Brad, I joked with you on Twitter, man, but I want to start this off the right way, right? Most embarrassing David Turner story, or you can tell me just maybe a nice story you have with him if you'd rather just be nice guy over here.
What I really appreciate about David is he is who he is, right? You know, love him or hate him, and he kind of is that person no matter what, right? So he could be talking to a coach that's making 10 times more than him and has all the say, and he has none of the say, and he's still gonna, disagree with this person, and he's still gonna challenge him just the same. And I think my favorite part about working with David is seeing him in those interactions, right? And a lot of people get turned off by it, but he is who he is, man, and it's around anyone. It's talking to coaches, it's talking to when he was talking with Mr. Davis, he did the same thing, and Mr. Davis, didn't always like it, but Dave was just going to be Dave.
I love it so much. I don't want
Mr.
to see
Davis didn't always like it, but sometimes he would pretend like he didn't like it, but then later on it would come around that he enjoyed the conversation or something.
Yeah, and I don't want David's ego to get boosted too much here, Brad. We're obviously living in a very strange world football-wise. It was nice to get a little bit of college football on the screen last weekend, Saturday night. Trying to go through a somewhat level of normalcy. I don't know if we can do that with college football. Obviously, with your scouting background, how difficult is it going to be this year? Me and David have talked about this a lot. Usually scouts have their schedules ready, what visits are going on, where they're stopping on the road. What is this world going to be like now from a scouting perspective for everyone? Yeah,
I mean, it's hard to imagine football happening at all. And, to have them not have any, really positive tests in the NFL is crazy because, you guys and, David especially can touch on it also. When you go out to a football practice, just a practice, there's so many people that are out on the field, from all the players are out there. You have 20 plus coaches, then you have the support staff, then you have the trainers and the doctors, and then you have the equipment and everyone else that is there to boost and get the practice going, and that doesn't even have that's just a single team, right? So it'll be interesting when games start and you add travel on to it as well, because it's they have a steep hill to climb and they're trying to climb it, at least most of college football, but it seems hard.
And what do you think about the decision about the Pac-10 or Pac-12 and Big Ten? Because now the Big Ten seemed to be under some fire. Even today, President Trump said he talked to their commissioner and stuff about it. What's your take on the pressure that they're getting to play football, and what's your take on the decision not to play?
Yeah, I mean, I think the Pac-12 and the Big Ten they made the hard decision, right? That's the unpopular decision, and I think that decision that they made was it showed. I think it showed real leadership. As much as people don't want to hear it, football is not essential, right? And people are really suffering out there, and this thing is spreading, and it's hard to imagine football spreading it more, and why we need to be doing that. But I also understand the other side of it too, because I've talking to other college athletes, even other sports outside of football. You talk about women's volleyball, and they understand that their only hope for playing this fall was if football was going, because football is the driver for so much of college athletics, and it's hard. There's no right answer, there's no wrong answer. It's just like we're living in COVID right now. Everything's hard.
And that was one thing that we talked a lot about over the course of this COVID thing, is that the finances have been based around college football, whether you're a small program or you're one of the big five, right? And since that's where the money has been coming for so long, when you have this massive disrupt like right now, I mean, they've already missed on the NCAA tournament, basketball tournament, and all spring sports of 2020, that they didn't get any revenue for them. And now to miss on the fall sports, have a whole calendar year without money coming in. Like we saw Iowa, they dropped four sports already through their program. They went down from 24 to 20. And we know that more of these decisions are going to be coming because it's hard without these paychecks coming in. So for for you to say, like, it's the right decision, and it's hard. I think it's good for everybody to hear that, because you're a man that made his money in football. Like, I'm a man who made a money in football, and Ryan makes his money off of football, and sports in general. It's how we keep our bread on the table for our family. But to hear somebody like in your stature and your status to say it's the right decision, I think that's very powerful.
Yeah, I mean, but it's like you said, these schools, canceling sports, and you hear today, Texas, they had a bunch of layoffs today. They had a bunch of furloughs today, and that's the University of Texas, right? You think they're untouchable,
Mm-hmm.
right? I've had conversations with people there, talking about Athletes Launch, which we can get into, but their athletic department is so robust that they don't think they need help in a lot of things. And to hear that they're laying off people and going through these times, man, if they're going through it, everybody is.
Right. Yep. Places like Iowa, Texas, these are big programs making tough decisions, and imagine what the lower level schools are going to have to make coming up.
No doubt.
And Brad, I know I asked a little bit about, how the scouting world is going to kind of get, flipped upside down a little bit. One thing that I just keep thinking about is, so David talked to me a little bit about in the past, sometimes you're in those scouting meetings and you're not really pounding the table for everyone, right? Like, you're kind of picking and choosing the guys that you really want to stand up for. In a situation like this, where we're seeing a guy like maybe Greg Russo from Miami declare after just 1 year of production, Micah Parsons only playing, until his sophomore year, those types of things. How difficult is that facet of it for guys to really, put your stamp on a guy that you've barely seen tape on, maybe 1 year of production? And kind of on top of that, where are we getting our information from? Who are you trusting to ultimately make your evaluation and then offer up that decision and that evaluation to a scouting department general manager?
Yeah, those are really good questions, because I know for me, when I wanted to really fight for a guy, I always wanted to make sure that I felt really good about the character. I feel like, most of the misses that happen are based off of who the guy is. And if I felt really good about someone's character, then felt like I could really fight for him. And it'll be harder now for sure, because, a lot of these colleges are now going to go to, meetings online, which, is fine. Right. And I think, in some ways it makes it easier for scouts to do it, but it doesn't give you that one-on-one connection with certain times. And that's going to hurt the scouts' ability to really, really feel good about their grades. And, I think a lot of the scouting part can be virtual, right? A lot of scouting part doesn't need to be on the road 24/7, but you still need to be able to see these people in person, and you still need to be able to talk to these sources, right? So I think it's going to be a lot of value for the scouts that have really good sources and have a maintained staff of sources, right? So they don't have to, meet new people, or they don't have to figure out which source they need to trust, because that's what scouting is. You hear so many different opinions on players from people around the program, and you need to figure out who is a good source and who is a bad source. And for younger scouts, that's hard. And for a scout going into a new area, that's hard. So scouts that have been in the same region or going into the same schools, they'll have the advantage.
Yeah, absolutely, Brad. I mean, I can attest. I mean, you sent me into Utah. I know exactly who to talk to and who's going to blow smoke, right? So I totally agree with you there. And I think teams like, let's just say it, like the Giants, who let a lot of their guys go, their veterans go, and went with a youth movement there. I think they're going to wind up they used to be a very strong team with all this. Now I think they're going to wind up having some stumbling blocks here out the gates, because again, the access to who you talk to is up to the school. Who they put on the Zoom call is all you're going to get access to. When I walk in and I stumble around the building, and how I do it, I can wander into a lot of different places and find different nooks and crannies to get information out of folks. So yeah, you're almost going to have the tale told to you versus you discovering the true character of somebody now.
Yeah, totally. I mean, most of these coaches aren't gonna, as my doorbell rings here, COVID, right? And
Yeah.
um, yeah, most of these coaches aren't their numbers aren't available for people, and they're not going to be ready to get on a Zoom call for massive people. And if they do get on a Zoom call, they're not going to say anything worth talking about. So those scouts that have the numbers and have those connections, that's going to be huge.
And,
How
and
do you
again,
go
sorry,
ahead,
guys.
Ryan?
No, you're
No,
good.
no. I was going to say, Brad, on that note, because you were talking about, how it's not easy to get the coach's number, which is so true, and have them trust you, even if you do have their number, to get on the call with you. Let's take this to let's switch it on to. There's a lot of bad GMs in the NFL, and we're seeing some of them being played out right now.
Can you name us some, David?
Oh, absolutely, if I wanted to. And how do they keep their jobs? In your opinion, you've worked in the trenches, you've worked your way up to a director's level at the NFL level. Why and how are these men keeping their jobs when we're just seeing teams absolutely lose draft picks, lose cap? I mean, there's 3 teams that right now have over $30 million in cap space that has just been chewed up and it's just sitting there. I mean, those are all pro salaries. You could pay 1 or 2 all pro guys with that money, and it's dead cap money. Like, how do these guys keep getting jobs, being recycled, or even just retain their jobs?
Yeah, it's funny too, because sports you think of as a meritocracy, right? And you think the best just rise, and when you lose, you fall off, and you lose your spot. But that really only applies to the players. The scouts and the coaches, it's an old boys network, right? And it's who and it's who's your buddy, and who can talk to the owner and talk to people around the building. And a lot of times the scouts that are really good evaluators and really good football skills, they don't have that politician in them to sweet talk the CEO and the owners and things like that, where those guys kind of get run out of there. And yeah, it's just it doesn't, the meritocracy of the playing field just doesn't apply to coaches and to scouts.
And again, we're here with Mr. Brad Kaplan, former college scouting director for the Oakland Raiders, now a senior director at Athletes Launch, new technology to help athletes launch their post-playing career. A little bit of a alliteration there. Brad, why don't you tell us a little bit about Athletes Launch and what you have been doing since obviously being on the scouting trails?
Yeah, so for me, it was great spot to land, because you see so many of these former players that once they're done, they don't know what to do next, because when you're in football, you have to be all in, and coaches, push that, and to be excellent at something, it takes a lot of your time. And so they don't get to focus much on what they're going to do next. But for 99% of the country and to athletes out there at the college level, they're not going to make their money for the rest of their life off of sports. And so helping them try to figure out what is next is what we're doing at Athletes Launch. It's a website at athleteslaunch.com, and it's in the Apple Store. You can download it there. And it's a place for former athletes, college athletes, professional athletes, Olympic athletes, and helping them their transition to life after sports. So you got companies that understand the value of former athletes, because, man, the skill set of being an elite athlete, I mean, it's the top 2% of the country, right? And so those skills, they translate to the workforce.
When you're talking about using this app to help the hiring of new athletes, is that what we're talking about here?
Yeah, definitely.
How would you talk about, we had the question in the mailbag, so I wanted to ask you this question. How do you see the hiring process for new scouts coming in to the league versus and talk a little bit about how you broke in and tell them that story? Because I mean, obviously I was in the building, so I love to hear this story.
Yeah, I think that's one of the questions I get asked the most, right? Is how do you get in to NFL scouting, right? How do you get in? And a lot of times I'll say, not the way that I did it, right? I felt like I got very lucky, and it's not the way that I would advise it. It was my dream. I wanted to be an NFL scout. That's what I wanted to do. And I put together this draft project, and when I was in college and sent it everywhere. Sent it to the GM and sent it to the director of college scouting, every team. And in 2007, I was lucky enough to get my foot in the door with the Raiders, and I stuck around there for 12 years. But the way I would do it now, if I was trying to get my foot in, is you gotta get into a building, right? And I think the fastest way in is to get to a college program that needs help. Not a Power 5 school. Go to a 1AA or go to Division 2, Division 3, and be helpful, right? Get in there and work. I think all those programs need bodies, from helping out recruiting to helping out filming practice. I think the video guys, the equipment guys, they always need bodies. And make yourself useful to that. Those people, get your foot in the door. Then you learn a little bit about recruiting, learn a little bit about the scouting process, and you start seeing scouts come into your school, and then you can start talking with them, because as for us hiring with the Raiders, we mostly hired college staff and people that we knew on the road, and all of our scouts would be able to submit resumes from people that they'd met over the year. And making those connections will be huge if you're trying to get into the league.
And Brad, I wanted to ask, because David always talks about his Al Davis stories, kind of winding down with our time here. Do you have one that might stick out of your mind a little bit? Maybe just like a funny conversation or a funny just altercation. Well, I don't want to say altercation, but you know what I mean.
Man, that's so many good memories and bad memories and getting yelled at memories, right? From
that's
Davis.
a Tuesday.
Yeah. Man, I have so many great memories of working for him. One that I was thinking about earlier today was his last year of his life. I was lucky enough to get close enough to be in on a lot of the meetings and be on a lot of the meetings with the coaching staff. And it was lockout year, and over the 4th of July, which was his birthday, I took 2 days off. And I remember when I came back, that next day, that first day back in the office, we had a meeting. It was me and all the, either offensive staff or the defensive staff. And he always had me with him at that point to help him, any question he had on players, right? Tell me about this, who's their backup this, or, what's the arm and hand to this person. I had all that stuff. And that meeting, he asked for something so off the wall, and he knew I didn't have it, right? He knew that I wouldn't have that. And he just cursed at me. It was like, right, Brad's still on vacation. I took 2 days off the whole off season, and he killed me for it. But
that's exactly why he did it. That's
Mr.
exactly
Davis.
why he did it. I remember those days. Yeah. I went to see my son one time, and I got during training camp, and it was this 24-hour trip for his birthday. And I got, I'd hate to deny your son his father on his birthday. Then you come back, you don't even know if you have a job. You're just like, what am I walking back into right now? Then you're just in the, you're in the outhouse for a couple of days and you work your way out of it.
Yeah, some of my best memories over my time in the NFL was being able to work with him, and it was you got yelled at all the time, and that was the way that he taught you. And I definitely learned a lot and worked my tail off for him.
Absolutely, we wouldn't have any other way, right?
Love for Mr. Davis, to say the least. I would say. I don't know if you guys would say that, but that's what it sounds like to me. Brad, we're winding down here. Want to thank you again so much. Mr. Brad Kaplan. I'm sorry. I'm looking over all your credentials, and it's like, David, man, I have listed here Amari Cooper, Derek Carr, Khalil Mack during your tenure, a lot of great things. I want to thank you so much for taking some time for us. Obviously, former.
He promised.
What happened? What? Oh,
no technically. We'll clean it up. Don't worry about it.
Oh, you guys hear me?
Bad. Yeah, you're back.
I can hear you a little bit. Yeah. David's got 20 different jobs, and I had one.
But it was a great one, so that's all that matters. So I want to end out the interview by thanking you so much for your time today. I know David spoke very glowingly about you earlier today. And it was a great conversation, a lot of insight. So from myself, David, obviously as well, I'm sure he'll give you your goodbyes as well. But I want to thank you so much for taking some time today.
Appreciate it, guys. Yeah, check me out on Twitter, Kaplan with a K, and find me on LinkedIn as well, Brad Kaplan, and check out what we're doing at Athletes Launch.
Yeah, everybody should be paying attention to what this man's doing right now, because ever since I met him, seven is a winner all the way through everything he's ever touched. So if you're not familiar with Athletes Launch and you're an athlete, you really need to go. If you're a parent of an athlete, if you're a friend of an athlete, you need to go check this out, because this technology is what's coming, and he's in the forefront as usual of big things, and he's going to make it happen. I appreciate you coming on tonight, Brad. Obviously, brother, we'll have you on again and talk more ball with you. And enjoy your evening there in the Bay. Enjoy your new baby and your wife and all that. And thanks again so much.
Thank you, guys, man. And Dave, love following you on here and hearing your takes, man. Take care, guys.
Take care.
Thanks again, Brad.
Bye.
All right. We want to send a big shout out, obviously, to Mr. Brad Kaplan for coming on with us today. The first of our 2 interviews for tonight, live as always, 8:30 Eastern time every Tuesday. Release time is 12 o'clock 12 o'clock Pacific time and 3 o'clock Eastern time on Wednesdays. If you didn't get a chance to check out the live, we will appreciate you for tuning in to Mavs Sports Take tonight. If you like what you hear, please consider signing up for our Friday Night Scout School Season Pass. David and I teach a weekly class on how to view football through a scouting eye, through a scouting lens. This coming week is safeties. We see how much safeties are becoming high-priced free agents and pricey trade bait this offseason specifically. We talk about guys like Budda Baker, Jamal Adams getting traded, some guys getting paid, and this is why you should tune in to Friday Night Scout School each and every week. David, just some brief comments on Mr. Kaplan. What was kind of your main takeaways as we get closer to our second interview of this episode?
Well, main takeaway with Brad is you hear him talk about the different landscapes changing and how he, gave the kudos to making the tough decision. As a true leader, you can recognize tough decisions and that they're not the easy ones, they're not the popular ones, but still you have to make them for the betterment of whatever your company is, or in this case, when we were talking, those kind of decisions are when you see a true leader rise to the top. So, I really commend Brad for coming on, talking openly about everything, and then also his advice on how to break into the business. So many of our viewers, our listeners, ask us, again, how to get in, and that's the best way is to find a program that needs help, go be the difference. When you do move on, leave it better than it was. When Brad left the Raiders, like you said in your intro, they had drafted guys like Khalil Mack and Cooper and Derek Carr and so many others that are still there and helping that organization achieve greatness again down now in Las Vegas. So, for any young person, a piece of advice you really got to think about that you take away from Brad is go in and find a place that you can make a difference and leave it better than what you found it.
And I keep accidentally calling them the Oakland Raiders, even though they're the Las Vegas Raiders. I know it was fine because you guys were with the Oakland Raiders, but it's just, does that at any point, does that sound normal at any point, the Las Vegas Raiders for you?
Not in my head. And you know what? I don't know if I'll ever call them that. I might just call them Raiders from now on, or the Raiders, go old school. Like Mr. Davis would have liked the Raider Nation whole thing is just they're the Raiders. Because I don't know if I could say that this any city but Oakland. I really can't.
Absolutely. And I know we've had now the privilege of talking to a lot of excellent guests in only this 4th episode. We have Mr. Tom Pelissero from NFL Network. If you didn't check out that episode, please go back. We're on every platform you can imagine: Mavs Sports Take, Apple Podcasts, iTunes, iHeartRadio, anything that you use to listen to your podcast, we are on. Breaking out now the next interview, the second on the list. I'm really excited to talk about this. We talk about an ever-changing and tough decision-making world right now. We have a young man now that's coming into the chat here who made a decision. We have Mr. Danny Godlevske, who is the starting center, or was the starting center, I guess. Now we should use past tense, for the University of Miami, Ohio Redhawks. All-MAC player last couple years, Remington Award preseason watch list for 3 seasons. Has made the choice now, opting out of his final year of eligibility and getting ready preparation for the 2021 NFL Draft. So now I have Mr. Danny Godlevske on the air here. Danny, can you hear us okay?
Yeah, I got you. How you doing, guys?
Good, man. How's everything on your end?
It's going good, man. I appreciate you guys having me on the show. Thanks for the opportunity.
Yeah, Danny. No, we appreciate you signing on here. Now, I have a question for you really quick. Does your camera work?
Yeah, I think so. Sorry.
No, it's okay. I just wanted to – hey.
Got me?
There we go. Good-looking guy like you. We gotta promote that good-looking guy like yourself, you know. They don't want to look at our ugly mugs the whole night. They'd rather look at you.
And Danny, I'll say, man, you're an
Yeah, absolutely. So, Danny, help me understand something. Yeah, help me understand something really quick. Now, who helped you make this decision to opt out and enter into the NFL Draft? Who was in your circle of trust, let's call that, and help you made this decision?
Yeah, so, I had a lot of conversations with my family and Coach Martin and Coach Barnett. They're continuous for a couple of weeks, and ultimately I had just to make the decision to leave Miami, and it was a tough one. I really wish I could play with my brothers this year in 2020 and win another MAC championship. But I really want to focus on the things I can control, and I couldn't control not playing this year. And, it's unfortunate, but it's the best decision for me. And Coach Martin and Coach Barnett really helped me out. So.
And Danny, I know I actually had the privilege a few minutes before we got on here. Coach Barnett actually inboxed me on Twitter.
Go ahead,
he saw. What's that?
Ryan. You're good.
Is it good now?
Mm-hmm.
All right. Sorry about that, guys. All right.
No problem.
All right. So, Danny, I actually had the fortune a few minutes before we went live here. Coach Barnett actually, he hit me up on Twitter. He DM'd me, and because I obviously had made a little, Twitter post about you yesterday, highlighted some awesome plays that I was incredibly impressed by when I was watching your film. And he messaged me. He said, Danny's a good one, man. Like you need to, keep kind of speaking the truth on him as a potential NFL player and all these good things. So talk to me about the guys closest to you. Obviously with Coach Barnett, you spoke about a little bit helping you make that decision. I know Mr. Doyle, the left tackle for the team, also made a similar decision. So how close were you to not only Coach Barnett making that decision, but also Mr. Doyle over there at left tackle?
Yeah, so when we got here in 2016, Tommy and I were roommates off bat. So we were best friends since the beginning. And, we've had this mindset of, hey, man, we're in this together. We're confident. We're confident dudes, and we really want to make a name for ourselves and make a career out of this. So we helped each other grow throughout the process, and going through it with him as my best friend, it's an experience like none other. And with Coach Barnett, it's a funny story, actually, because a few years back when he was coaching for University of Indianapolis, my cousin was the center there. And so my cousin had a lot of success at U of I, and growing up, I really looked up to my cousin Tim, and seeing his success, I kept hearing Coach Barnett's name. And then eventually when my time come to get recruited and I had the opportunity to play for Coach Barnett, it didn't really matter who was offering me. And I was like, I want to play for him. I knew from a young age I wanted to, and it's funny how it worked out.
That's awesome. Now, tell me about what do you think your top 3 strengths are going into this draft process? Like going in and saying, if I'm an O-line coach in the NFL and I want to get to know you, what are your top 3 strengths?
Firstly, I'm a really competitive dude. I love the game of football. So I work really hard. I'm a technician. I'm always in a growth mindset. I really want to get better and grow every single day. And, thirdly, some people say I'm an undersized guy, but I don't think I am, because the way I play tough, and I play bigger than I actually am. So that's what I would say.
What's your playing weight usually?
Last year I played at 295 to 300. It kind of fluctuated in that. that range.
What's the heaviest you've ever played at?
302, I believe.
302.
Yeah.
So you're comfortable in that 305 to 295 range?
Yeah, I would say like 295 to 298 range is my peak athletic state.
Center as an athlete? What?
Yes,
What?
sir. Changing the game.
And I just kind of wanted to give a little background on Danny as a person that's been able to watch the film, taking a look at him. If you go back to that Twitter poll, I kind of tried to highlight what I felt was the best parts of your game, Danny. You know, I feel like from a technical perspective, really fluid hips. You clearly understand leverage, how to get your body positioned correctly. Felt like very strong hands, very strong. And I think a lot of guys get a kind of a misnomer by you because like you're not the tallest guy, right? And you kind of win off of being a really physical football player that they don't think you're a great athlete. But I saw several times you're pulling into space, you're moving to the second level. So I think that you're a much better athlete than maybe some people will give you credit for. If I could ask you about what you think is the biggest developments of your game, what are some things that maybe when you first got to Miami that you didn't consider a strength, but now you kind of look back and say, those were the biggest important attributes for me to improve on and become the player you are now?
You know, definitely, like you just mentioned, my athleticism and my functionality in my hips. The past year or so, me and Tommy, you know, we've worked a lot on becoming a functional athlete. We've focused a lot on recovery and doing yoga and Pilates in our off time, and that's really paid off. And I would say from my freshman year until now, and I'm still even growing and getting better daily, is my like being a functional athlete and working on my hips and my bendability every day.
Mm-hmm. And I might have this wrong, but isn't Tommy a former hockey player or something, right?
Yeah.
Like he's got a skating background or something. Who's got better balance then? Is it easy one for him?
Oh, it's me for sure, man.
Oh, for sure. Easy.
For sure.
Okay.
Yeah, I mean,
No doubt about it. Look at that confidence coming through. Okay, Mr. Confident. What's your strategy from now until the NFL draft? If you're always thinking forward, right? What's your strategy you're going to execute to be ready for that draft day experience?
So right now, nothing's really set in stone about my plan, but I know for the next couple months, 3 to 4 months, I'm going to focus on working with Coach Barnett a lot and working locally with our guy Josh Holstetter at Breakthrough Strength and Performance in Cincinnati. Tommy and I have been working with him for the past year, and he's a big functional strength guy. He's a super genius, I think. And so I'll be working out with him and Coach Barnett locally for the next 3 to 4 months, and then that's what my plan is for right now.
Have you made any idea or any headway on representation or anything like that since you've already opted out? Or have you been approached by, obviously your name's out there, have any of the agents approached you and tried to recruit you yet?
Yeah, right now I'm verbally committed to JL Sports with Joe Linta and Anthony LaRubio.
I know them very well.
Yeah, I'll be signing with them the next couple weeks when I'm back in Oxford. So
you tell Joe I said hello.
Will do.
And Danny, as we have you here for the last few minutes, I want to ask this because I love asking people this because obviously you're getting very close to it. What I'm assuming has been a dream probably for you since you were a little kid, right? Being able to play professional football. What's that going to be like, man? How much has that meant to you? When did that dream begin for you?
You know, it's funny because I was actually looking through some old like first grade time capsule yesterday. And I had a letter from my dad from 2005. He's like, hey, Danny, right now you should be graduating from high school, and I really hope you are achieving your dreams of playing college football. And I was like, wow, man, like that was back in 2005. I was a first grader. So like from a young age, I've always loved football. I've been in a competitive family, a football family. And I'm not in the NFL now. Right now I got a ton of work to do, and I'm super excited for the process. But I mean, if I were to make it, and when I do make it, it's going to be a special moment for me and my family for sure. So
absolutely. And one thing that I loved and I really wanted to highlight so much outside of your game is I've seen some offensive linemen, so when I think of bad offensive lineman names, right, I remember there was a guy named Guy Wimper that played for the New York Giants, which has to be the worst last name I've ever heard of an offensive lineman, right? Wimper. Godlevske, dude. I could get down with the name Godlevske on the offensive line for sure. So I just wanted to throw that one out there for you.
I'm sure my family would appreciate that one.
Well, you know what? When I watch his game, he kind of reminds me of a O'Hare that used to be the Giants center for a
That's a good
while.
one.
I mean, he wasn't always the biggest guy. He was about 305, maybe 308, but he was a nasty little sucker in there, and he was really smart. He can make all the calls. He can do all the line adjustments and things that you need to do as a center. But again, he was a captain that always carried the C right on his chest. And as I've watched you, Danny, in your game a little bit, and then here tonight, you really do remind me a lot of O'Hare. So, hopefully that helps and people, start comparing you to those kind of guys, because that's what I'm seeing so far as I started down this road with you.
I appreciate that, man. That's an honor.
Yeah, and that's coming from an 18-year scouting vet in the National Football League, professional football leagues all over the place, Arena League. So obviously high praise for you, Danny. I want to ask you one last question, because David Turner also does some consulting. So you're going to be asked this a million times before whenever you get drafted or you're signed, whatever it ends up being. All right, and this is very cliche. You ready for it? What can Danny Godlevske bring to my organization? The moment that he steps foot in the door, what are you bringing to an offensive line room and the team in general?
I'm bringing up mentality of getting better every day, a competitive SOB. And, it doesn't matter who's going to line up in front of me, because I'm going to get the job done no matter what. No excuses.
Love it. I love it.
Great answer. Great answer. Hey, I commend you for making this decision. I commend you for handling the adversity that's thrown our way as a society right now, keeping a smile on your face, and the competitive view unfold tonight and experiencing you for the first time. I really commend you for taking this head on and being a what it looks like a great leader for an offensive line. So good for you. I applaud you, sir. And again, if you do need any help, tell Joe to call me. Like I said, I know him really well, and I can circle back and help you out.
Will do, man. I really appreciate you guys having me.
Oh, absolutely. So again, Mr. Danny Godlevske, former All-MAC center from University of Miami, Ohio here. Danny, I want to thank you again so much. Only our 4th episode so far. You're the first current player that we have had on the show. So you're a part of trivia. You're a part of history, man. Appreciate it again so much for taking some time.
Love it, man. It's an honor. Take care.
Good luck to you, Danny.
You too, brother. Have a good one. All right, so our first opt-out, our first current I've almost said NFL player. That's soon enough, right? He's going to be in pretty soon. Obviously, a really nice player for Miami, Ohio over the last few years. David, quick, just thoughts. Being a person that's been in so many meetings with players, so many interviews, doing the consulting you do, the one-on-one with players, how impressive of a young man do you think Danny Godlevske is?
I really enjoyed Danny because, the eye contact, even though we're doing this via Zoom, eye contact was good. His body posture was good. He wasn't fidgeting. He wasn't moving around. He was confident in his posturing and answering every question. We didn't throw him off by asking him anything where he was uncomfortable answering it. He seemed like he was ready for each one we threw him. So, I really, and like I said, he seems like he's a man who's taking it by, the bull by the horns here, and just saying, hey, listen, it's not the right decision for me to play a spring season. I'm going to be prepared and ready to go for the NFL draft and the process, whatever that looks like. I'll be ready for it by sticking around. I applaud him for sticking around at school, working with Coach Barnett and the strength coach that he's working with there in Cincinnati. A lot of these players want to be sent away from home and put up and all this to do. And he's, offensive lineman mentality. I'm going to stick with what I know, and I'm going to stick with who I know, and they're going to get me where I need to be. So, again, he really seemed like an impressive young man. Getting to know him, first introduction to him, I really enjoyed Danny tonight with his mentality, his approach to this interview, and his approach to what he sees to lay out for himself coming forward for the process that he's going to take on. It's a very adverse time, and he's handling the adversity really well. So I applaud him for that.
And I love just the competitiveness in his voice. They had the really nice left tackle coming out this year too, Miami, Ohio. Not too often you get two legit guys in the offensive line coming out of Miami, Ohio with the Red Hawks. So Tommy Doyle, very good left tackle, first team All-MAC last year. I asked him a couple questions, comparing himself a little bit to Mr. Doyle, and you heard him, man. He said he is number one in that room. So I love it so much. It was a great conversation. If you aren't following Mr. David Turner on Twitter, Mav_sports, Maverick Sports Consulting was created to help professionals in the sporting community to showcase their passion for their sport in a professional manner, whether that is to help you when approaching an interview, creating a social media marketing plan, or helping build helping build you a take a wonder. That's phrased a little weird. Sorry, David. Or helping you build and take a Wonderlic test. We have here to help you and maximize your opportunity. Please head over to mavericksportsconsulting.com to find your advantage. Package today. I'll have to chop that up a little bit. That was a big tongue twister on my part. Last section here, as always, mailbag section. We love answering your questions each and every week. Thank you, everyone, for submitting questions for this week. David, first one, jumped right into mailbag. Jeff Schramm, apologize if I'm not pronouncing that correct, asked, do you believe the draft will still take place in April of 2021? I know that there is a option to push it back, I think sometime early in June. But David, do you think that we're going to be on pace to have this in April, or do you think that it's a pushback situation?
I think it ultimately is going to be a pushback situation, mainly because two of the top Power Fives didn't play in the fall. And if they want to rectify any kind of spring season, it'll have to be pushed back. All-star games, combine, all that kind of stuff. I know it's being discussed right now if the combine can be pushed back a couple weeks, allowing some folks to maybe potentially host a winter, spring season and then do some combine stuff later. But, I ultimately think it will be pushed back with what's going on in our country and everything right now. So and as you alluded, and I think Tom Pelissero last week on the podcast alluded, we can definitely push it back till the CBA allows us to push it back till June 2nd. So you might see like a May 15th draft this year, take place. And, hopefully they'll have one taking place in person. So people can get that whole experience of shaking the commissioner's hand and walking across the stage.
Mm-hmm. Absolutely. I would hate for people to lose out on opportunity. I feel like the pushback will definitely help a lot of people in a lot of different areas. Next question, we have Mr. Keon Johnson, good friend of the show. With the start of the football season upon us, who or which team do you believe has positioned themselves to be the most impressive team this year as far as with changes, aside from Kansas City? So when I look at who the most talented roster is in the NFL, because that's what I'm looking at in the preseason, right? I want to look at coaching. I want to look at what the roster looks like in a uncertain time too, with some limited opportunities. Like I just said in the preseason, I feel like the more veteran roster combined with a stable head coaching department, I think is really big, obviously, for the 2020 season moving here. So my vote would honestly be for the New Orleans Saints. I think that they are they're always a threat, right? As long as they have Sean Payton, Drew Brees, they're going to be in the conversation. Drew Brees' final year, maybe it'll be a swan song. Maybe it'll be like John Elway's story ending type of career. But I think the New Orleans Saints, top to bottom, might have the strongest, most consistent roster in the NFL. And, as long as they have Drew Brees, I'm definitely not going to count them out in the Super Bowl contention conversation.
That's interesting because I like the Saints a lot. Don't get me wrong. But I have other teams that come to mind. One of the major ones that is coming to mind is the Seattle Seahawks. The Seahawks, with what they've been able to amass and through trades and moves, as well as having the core, like you said, coaching staff, evaluators, GM, all in place for, a decade now. And, Russell Wilson being there, I think they've done an excellent job getting that team ready for the next level. I mean, they've revamped and refocused that team, and then you got to look over at Minnesota. They're doing everything possible to make a run. I mean, they are, trades, draft day. They drafted like 13 young guys to afford some freedom on their cap. They signed 16, I think, undrafted free agents. I mean, they're trying to build young while adding veterans at certain positions to get them where they need to go. It's a young energy. I heard there's a lot of young energy in that locker room, which has invigorated some of the veterans with that youth. So, I think, and then the Buffalo Bills, I mean, look at what the Buffalo Bills have done. The Buffalo Bills have really, I think, are starting to hit stride. And without Brady being in New England, I think the Bills are a team that have really done a lot of great things to be ready to take the next step. And they have a great young quarterback. So, these are three teams that come to mind under that question.
I like it. I like it so much. Kind of leading off of that question, we have Jeff Schramm asking, who's going to be worst to first in the NFL this year? I don't know if I have a great one for this, man. I really don't. If I had to pick somebody, I'm not going to say that they're going to be best in the NFL. One team I think that actually is going to be pretty improved this year, and this is probably going to take you a little off guard here, David. I think the Detroit Lions are going to be a competitive football team this year. I'm not a Matt Patricia guy, never have been. But if Matt Stafford stays healthy this year, I really like the weapons around him with DeAndre Swift now, Kerryon Johnson, those wide receivers, Kenny Golladay, Marvin Jones. Offensive line is solid. Their defense is not great, but, man, I feel like they can outscore some teams. So I'm not going to pick them to be in a big contender in the playoffs. But as a bottom dweller this past season, I think they can get to around 500, maybe sneak a 9-7 record, maybe sneak a wild card, something in that conversation. I'm a big Matt Stafford fan, though, so maybe I'm a little biased towards this type of question.
Yeah, when I'm looking at it's hard not to improve on a 3-12 record the Lions had last year. So, I think you might have just picked a homer pick right there because, if they get to 5, you look like you're a genius. But I mean, for me, if you're going to look at it, if you're looking at a team that's going to make a significant move, and I'm looking at the standings right now, I wouldn't put it past the Washington football team because they're young. Yeah, I almost said it. Their young talent on defense is going to be really impressive. I mean, what they have up front, the front seven for the Washington football team, and the new defensive coordinator and everything that I know Ron Rivera is bringing to the team, I think that defense is going to be really hard to run against. And their pass rush is going to be really special. And if not this year, next year, once they all, coagulate and gel together. But I think this year they're going to be really impressive. I think the Jaguars are going to take a step back even. But, you have the Colts sitting at 7-9. That would be my ultimate, you want to call it worst to first. I think that team's a 10-11 win team this year with Rivers at the helm. Might even be a 12-win team in a hunt for that playoff in that division there. So, and that's a division that had the Texans and Titans in it, but I think the Colts are really primed to take that over this year coming forward with Rivers pulling the trigger. So that would be my one pick if you want to call it worst to first.
No, I like that one. I didn't even think about the Colts in that conversation. Phillip Rivers, I mean, hey, man, that team just needs a stable element at that quarterback position. That roster, I love it. Chris Ballard, Frank Reich, that's a great situation to be in. I agree. The Colts, I think, are definitely a team that's going to make that jump there, even though they're in a competitive division. I do really like that pick. This one is very specific towards you, David. Fake Plastic T, that's his @ on Twitter. Slowly wanting to break more and more into the industry. What are some of the best resources and things that someone can do to improve and show investment to future employers? Let's take it one step at a time. There's a couple questions in here. I know Brad already gave us his 2 cents. From your perspective, what are some things that you should be taking necessary steps to break into the industry?
The key is work ethic. If you look at any of the bios of the guys that are up at the top of the chain, you're going to see guys that work their way up there for the most part. You don't see a bunch of guys that got a silver spoon in their mouth handed to them. I mean, it really takes a lot of hard work. So piggybacking off of what Brad said, you have to go to a program and get dirty. I know when I broke into the league at the Miami Dolphins, I wasn't in scouting. I was in team operations where I had to move furniture and deliver mail and fill water coolers every day, 2-3 times a day. And, I was responsible for ordering the Gatorade and stuff. It wasn't pretty when where we start. It's just, you got to work, you got to show you have the work ethic to get where you want to go. And that work ethic is often obviously respected by those because they've come from similar backgrounds and things. So you'll be rewarded as you move forward. You know, if you're really looking to get into the business now, I honestly think, and this is self-promotion, but it's true, if you take Friday Night Scout School and you learn how to scout from an early age, whether you're in coaching or you're trying to be an evaluator at some point in your life, you know, you might be a film guy at Colgate right now, but eventually want to be an evaluator. Taking courses from Friday Night Scout School to learn how to evaluate and see practice in a different light, hear the coach speak, hear the scouts speak that we do and we bring every Friday night, can help a young scout. That's why we developed this, right, Ryan? That's why you and I got into this, was to develop a course that really translated not only to scouts, but to coaches, to agents, to players just wanting to evaluate themselves and understand how to do it. Those kind of things. If I wish I had this kind of thing when I was younger. I know part of the question was, what do you wish when you had younger? I mean, I have a political science degree from San Francisco State. I did 2 congressional internships. I thought I was going to law school, and then I took a right, and I wound up here now 18 years later. None of that prepared me for scouting. And when I got into the scouting world, I had to learn it all. I had to learn the scouts speak. I had to learn schemes. I had to start to identify talent and how to do it. And without guys like Dave Gettleman, Ken Sternfeld, Larry Ennis, the late Larry Ennis, and John Amamiel, all these guys Steve Malin, Donnie Etheridge, I can go on and on. If they didn't take the investment and teach me this stuff at an early age, early scouting age, I would not be here today. So by having a resource like Friday Night Scout School, taking advantage of that right now is something that I would do, because then when I walked in the building, I'd be better prepared, ready for, you know, whatever they threw at me.
And I love how you phrase it, you know, taking advantage of opportunity. This is something that hasn't really been readily available to people, right? Like they always ask, how do you get in the industry? How do you get in the industry? We are literally giving you an opportunity to learn from yourself and from me as well. But obviously a person that has had 18 years of scouting experience, we're putting it out there, right? Like, you take this. This is an opportunity. It's almost like we're walking up and hitting somebody in the face. It drives me crazy when people don't take advantage of opportunity. So definitely Friday Night Scout School, I think, is a great plug there. Obviously, you know, us being a part of it, we want as many people to come take a look, because we think that we can give a lot of value to this market, to these people that have these aspirations, obviously. But I will say that it's been a joy to be able to work together. Obviously, my background's a little different in the fact of, you know, NFL Draft Bible scouting director. So I do independent scouting. I'm not for a team specific. But I will say, similarly to you, you know, I'm a teacher still, you know, as a full-time job, right? Like, it's not something where it's glamorous. It's not like, I would love to just do football 24/7, because we talked about this, right? Since I was 9 years old, this is what I wanted to do. You know, I wanted to be some capacity doing something with football. It's something that I love. So if I had to give any advice, take advantage of every opportunity, put yourself out there and work your ass off. Because at the end of the day, man, like the work speaks for itself. At the end of the day, we talked to Brad, right? Like, he wrote that portfolio, right, with the scouting and reports that he just kind of put together. And like yourself, you said you took a look at it and you're like, this is pretty damn good, man. Like, this is nice stuff, right? And then obviously he gets his opportunity, makes his headway with the Raiders. I feel like that we've heard some success stories like that, and, you know, hey man, taking advantage of every opportunity that comes with it.
Well, think about what Brad said really quick. I'll take a little bit longer on this call on this question. Brad sent that to about 3 to 4 people in every building. So and it was a book. Don't get me wrong. This was a thick book. This was not like a 100-page book. This was like 300, 400-page type thing where he broke down every player. He had some analytics in it, statistical stuff. I mean, I remember it till this day, and that was freaking, you know, how many years ago? 11, 12, 13 years ago? So, yeah, I mean, back when I had hair. So, I mean, it was just like – but it was just like it's an impressive piece of body of work, and he put his heart and soul into it. And, guys, he got one opportunity. And that was to walk in our building and then show that he could belong there. And he did that. Once he got in the building, he proved he belonged there. And then I started making an investment in him, and other scouts, the veterans, started making more investments in him. And then after I left, obviously he took all that investment that we made in him and he turned it into a director level career. So that's the kind of, work ethic you need to have when you're going forward. And it's not easy. There is no shortcuts. I mean, as much as people in today's day and age wish I could give them a shortcut, there isn't. You have to put the work in. You have to grind. If you're unwilling to do that, then any kind of success you have will be hollow success, because the only thing that fills the success up is the work that you did before you got it. And like you said, Ryan, this is the reason we did this school is because I didn't have this education growing up. You're a teacher. I want to teach these guys how to do it. So us developing the lesson plan each week together, we're teaching these guys the roadmap to be successful. And for people who don't take advantage of it, I'm sorry, maybe you just don't want it bad enough. Because if I had this kind of thing in front of me, if I had a guy like Larry Ennis back in the day, or a Tim Rooney saying, okay, I'm gonna come teach you every day, every Friday night, I'm gonna come to your house and teach you for an hour how to be a scout, you best believe I would be there with a pen and paper and no distractions, phones off, not just listening and taking him in the whole time, because that's what I want it to be. That's what I want to do. And so for these guys, I'm not trying to toot my own horn, but I have been 18 years in. I've picked the undrafted free agents that became all-stars. I've also made my mistakes on picking guys, and they've not pan out. Learn from guys like me. Well, guess what? You have access to me right now, whether it's the podcast and its questions, whether it's Maverick Sports Consulting and signing up for one of our packages, whether it's coming to Friday Night Scout School, whether it's tuning in on any of the NFL Draft Bible stuff that I do. I'm putting myself out there for everybody to learn from, and completely opening my door to people's questions, comments, and wanting to educate them. That's what we developed Maverick Sports Consulting to do, was to be there to help them maximize their opportunities. So I'm just thankful to have guys like you and Rick in my corner helping me do it and showing me how to do it the right way to get these people the access they need to me.
Yeah, and if I'll add one last thing, I feel like we could talk about this forever, but like the thing that I always tell students is like the people before you, this is why we learn history, this is why we learn from our parents. They did things, they made mistakes, right? They did some great things. They also made mistakes. You have to learn from both. It's not just learning how to be successful. It's learning how people made mistakes and not to do that again, right? We talk about history repeating itself. In your career, in my career that's developing, right? Like we've made mistakes. Not everything has been perfect. You have to learn from the good and the bad, just kind of throwing that in there last. We have a couple more questions.
Learning what not to do is more valuable than learning what to do. Understand that. If you learn where not to step, it's more valuable than learning where to step. Okay, listen to James Kirkland, our first guest ever. He said he made mistakes when he got into recruiting, and Levy just taught him how to do it and gave him a chance to recover. All our guests, I think, that we've talked about, have talked about making mistakes, learning from them, but learning from people's mistakes, keeping you out of the same mistake, is more valuable than any roadmap on how to get anywhere. I guarantee you that. Know why I know? Because I've made my share of mistakes. And as Brad said earlier, I am who I am. Some people don't like me. Some people do. I make my mistakes, but I've learned from them. I've learned.
Absolutely. And speaking of learning from mistakes, William Duncan NY asks, what are the main things you initially look for when watching film on edge rushers?
Well, William, you've made a fatal mistake by calling them edge rushers. Because in my dialect, my language, there is no such thing. There are either 34 outside rush linebackers or there's 43 defensive ends. There is nothing in between. If he's in between, that means he's an athlete without a home, which means I can't use him because he doesn't fit in the scheme. Okay? So, again, fatal flaws about edge rushers, there is none, because why? They don't exist. So,
well, let's do this. Let's do this, David. Let's break it down and actually answer the question. Having a little fun, obviously, with you, William. If you haven't tuned in before, you don't know David Turner hates the term edge rusher. So let's break this down. 4-3 defensive end, David. We're taking a look at a Myles Garrett, let's say. What's the first thing that you're looking at when you're looking at a 4-3 end in a even front?
Even front, I'm watching his stance and his get off. What's his first step look like? And and again, if it's an obvious rundown, what's his step look like? And then if it's an obvious pass down, what's his step look like? They should be different because you have different responsibilities on those two obvious plays. If it's an obvious run play, you're going to actually have to come off the ball and, secure an edge, set the edge, maybe turn the guy back in, not overcommitting, to the quarterback, opening up in a wide rush lane on the outside. Now, if it's an obvious pass down, his first step needs to be very automatic upfield, nice big explosion. His stance will be a nice coiled stance, ready to explode. The best guys I've ever seen do these kind of different steps look the same in their stance, so the tackle can't figure out what they're about to do, but their energy coming off the ball is just slightly different, just to make sure that they handle their run responsibility if it's a rundown. But if it's a pass down, they really explode and can get off in a way in which will put pressure on that tackle right at the snap of the ball.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, and that's what comes to mind when I get asked that question too, right? Like, I want a guy that has that first step that puts an offensive tackle in a tough situation to have to really work hard outside. And then what happens? You open up your chest, you fly your inside shoulder free, and then that leads to potential inside go, right? A couple of inside opportunities. I like guys that really press hard outside. From a physical perspective, I really want to touch base on that, just so we have kind of a threshold understanding in our mind, right? Like, so I think of 4-3 defensive ends, I'm thinking long, I'm thinking length, I'm thinking long arms. We talk about that huge tackle radius. I want guys that can press, extend, and set a firm edge on the outside. I'm picturing 6'5", 6'5 plus on the edge, a guy that has some length to his arms, and then obviously that athletic profile to threaten the outside corner. That just gives you so many options, right? Like, I want a versatile edge rusher. I don't want just a speed guy. I want a guy that, if you take away that initial speed rush, has the ability to work an inside counter, press back inside, convert speed to power, whatever it might be. So in my mind, I'm thinking long, lean, I'm thinking powerful, and I'm thinking the ability to gain a lot of extension on the edge for a 4-3 defensive end.
I think a 43 end, if you're looking on the, obviously the right side of the defense, left side of the offense, that speed rusher off the outside, you're going to see guys like either, Jason Pierre-Paul, who's like 6'6" and long, like you talked about, Osi Umenyiora, who was his first get off was huge, was amazing, but I think he was more in the 6'4.5" range. But the 6'4.5" to 6'6" kind of guys really have the ability to coil and explode and get off the ball. I was fortunate around my very first year in the league. I was with Jason Taylor down in Miami, so I'm watching a 6'6", long, lean guy who I think weighed about 255, 250, play an edge. And I was just like, wow, this is impressive to watch him. And then I go up from there to the Giants where Michael Strahan was, and I got to see Strahan play in person. Two different styles, though. Strahan had more power to him at that point. He wasn't a speed rusher. He played on the left side of the line, so he had more of a power game to him. He could really long arm and walk tackles back into the quarterback's lap. He could turn an edge with his hand violence and his quabs, his ability to flip a corner and his bend, and explode. But a guy like Osi Umenyiora, when I first got exposure to Os, I was like, holy crap! Like, his explosion, his first step was so rare. Like, I had never seen it before in my scouting career before I saw Osi do it, and it's just once in a lifetime type explosion and get off. So, again, there you can measurable wise, you're like 6'4" to 6'6". You like guys 250 to 275 at the very max, probably 265, better range. Guys with long arms, like you said, 33s to 34s, and have the upper body strength to press and extend and get the tackles girth off of them, and then work off contact from there.
I had so many thoughts when you were just talking there, David, because I'm just thinking about OCU Manura, and then my mind went to like the University of Troy had guys like DeMarcus Ware and then OCU Manura coming out. I'm like, that's insane just thinking about that, like a smaller school having guys like that coming out.
Back in the day, Troy was a hell of a place to go shopping, bro. Like I'm telling you, like scouting Troy, you were going to find a player. They had them. You were going to find a player at Troy. I guarantee it.
Yeah, I remember like that's like one of my first vivid like Senior Bowl memories. I remember DeMarcus Ware going down there and just absolutely dominating down in Mobile. That was one that really sticks out. Love the Strahan too, because I loved Michael Strahan growing up because I was kind of like an anti-Eagles fan. Did not like the Eagles at all. So Michael Strahan used to eat John Runyon's lunch, dude. John Runyon was such a good football player, but Michael Strahan would beat the ever-loving poop out of him. I didn't know if that was politically correct to say on a podcast.
We're unmuzzled here on Mavs. Just go for it. Whatever you want. You got it.
We are unmuzzled here on Mavs. Great point there. Last question of the night from Mr. Mark Jarvis. He apologized for being a little bit late. You're not late, Mark. We're still on. Question for David Turner. What was it like being the odd man out on a player in a meeting? Let's say you're on a cross-check. You're on a cross-check for a supposed top 50 guy that another scout loved, but you just don't see it. How does that process play out as a staff? Great question.
First, Mark, great question. But first, Mark, if it's a top 50 player, you probably aren't going to say, I don't see it, and he does see it. You're going to see it, just not as much as he sees it. That's probably how it's going to work. So, at the end of the day, you have to defer to the guy whose responsibility is to know the player, because he went into the school, he did the work, he's done the character, the medical, he's talked to the strength coaches, he knows this kid. The tape evaluation on a cross-check, if you're a team that just does tape evaluations on cross-checks, you're going to be like, you know what, I don't see him as a third rounder. I got him in the mid-fourth, early fifth, something like that. I think, he's not as fast and maybe not as athletic as we were looking for. But then again, you go back to the measurables. That's why scouting's a process. It's not to get to the decision. You do the initial scouting, you go and you talk about, or you go and take the measurables. He does some kind of workout. You got, speed and arm and hand, all those things. You got a medical grade on the guy. You have a character grade on the guy, and you have a film grade on the guy, and maybe 2 or 3 film grades on a guy. And typically, if he's a top 50 guy, you have the directors watched him, the GMs watched him, you have a scout that watched him, and you have a cross-checker that watched him. So if you got 4 grades minimum, and if they have a regional director or a national guy, you could have 5 grades on a top 50 guy. Most top 100 guys, you got 4 to 5 grades on them already. If all 5 guys see him vastly different, something's wrong. If you got 3 guys in one bucket and 1 in the other, you go with the 3 guys. You know what I mean? It's the best you can do at the decision at the time. But where you're going to find the arguments, I think what he's really trying to talk about, are down in the 5th, 6th, 7th round. Those are the ones where you might have a guy going, I don't see it, he's a free agent, and a guy go, no, he's definitely a 5th round pick. And that's where you're going to hear those arguments, because that might be 1 or 2 guys that seen the guy. The medical's clean, the character's clean, all that kind of off the field stuff works for the organization. So now it's about, what do you see? And even back there, it's typically the scout that wins out is the scout that went into the school, did the school visit, and that's the grade that takes higher priority.
Awesome question there, Mark. Want to thank everybody for submitting questions this week for the mailbag portion of Mavs Sports Take. I had a ton of fun on this episode, diving in with Mr. Brad Kaplan. Also taking a listen to Danny Godlevske, the now 2020 NFL draft prospect, officially not playing football this year for Miami, Ohio. David, we have had the privilege now of talking to some incredible people. Mr. Tom Pelissero, if you all haven't heard that one, I would definitely go take a look. We talked to him last week. It's been so much fun just having some people on. James Kirkland a couple weeks ago, like you mentioned earlier. We're talking to some people that have obviously, have had huge roles in the industry, right? Like yourself, and have so much expertise and so much experience to talk about and to speak from a personal level, which I feel like a lot of people can take a lot of great things from this episode specifically. David, what do you want us to leave us on tonight? Obviously, another week. We are officially in college football season. It still feels a little weird. NFL, very quickly coming upon us as well next weekend, if I have that correctly. So what do you want to leave us with tonight, my man?
Well, I'd like to, leave all those listeners that are out there that are curious about the business of the sports, not just football. I know we talk a lot of football, but just business of sports. They can ask any question they want to try to get behind the scenes, take on what's it like to build teams, rosters, what it's like to manage a roster, what it's like to be an athlete trying to break in, whatever your question is. Just feel free to, take a shot. There's no dumb questions here. Now, I will say, if you're going to ask me where some kid's going to get drafted, like I told you before, go to a different show. That's not our show. We're here about education going on a higher level for you.
We got all areas here, man. We got all areas, all ventures. We got everything covered on Mavs Sports Take. That's where you are, my
friend. But the biggest takeaway tonight, to me, was both our guests talked about how hard working they are. You got to work hard in life. You got to work smart in life. If you really want to understand where you're sitting at life, why not refer yourself or try to get yourself an expert, a mentor in your corner? And right now, again, taking advantage of what we offer at Mavs Sports Consulting, mavericksportsconsulting.com, you can go there and really pick a package that fits what you're looking for in your life right now. Whether it's you need to evaluate to see if you should come out, opt out, whether it's you're an agent and you want to know how to market a kid who's opting out, develop a whole marketing plan for social media. Is it to plan what you should be doing? We heard Danny talk about staying at school, working with his coaches, going to sign with JL Sports, and then move forward. As a director of ANC, we're getting ready to launch what we're calling our Q camps, and those are going to be this fall. We're going to come out and we're going to give opportunities to athletes to try to have quality evaluations during the fall, which we've never done at ANC before, but we feel the marketplace needs it this year, so we're trying to do it. Come to Mavs Sports Consulting, check us out, see what we offer, and take advantage of our experience, put it behind you. That's what we really want you to do. Take away from this, guys like Danny and guys like Brad are working hard, trying to, navigate this unprecedented time and adversity. Find your expert and put them to work for you.
That's really well said. Again, Mavs Sports Consulting. Definitely take a look at Maverick Sports Consulting. You can find David Turner also at Mav_sports. For the NFL Draft Bible perspective, we offer, just like David said, an opportunity to educate here at NFL Draft Bible, whether that is Baldy seminars, Baldy breakdowns every third Wednesday, bringing you into a man that you see every week on NFL Network, right? Like these are the industry professionals that we're bringing to you guys. We had Tom Pelissero on this podcast last week. So we're bringing you the best in the business. Obviously, every scout school has been so much fun every Friday night, 9 Eastern time, teaching with David Turner about, the scouting world, developing our eye for the game. It's been a ton of fun. We're diving into safeties this week, breaking down guys like Jamal Adams, Budda Baker, and Eddie Jackson, one of my favorite guys out of the University of Alabama a couple years ago. So if you aren't signed up yet, I would definitely go take a look at our season pass. You can sign up a la carte, whatever you want to do. I would definitely recommend those for you guys all. Make sure you like, share, and follow us on Twitter, Instagram, LinkedIn, Facebook. I'm at Rise and Draft again. David is at Mav_sports. We thank you all. Thank everybody in the mailbag so much for taking the time tonight. If you all liked what you heard, send us a review. You can review us on whatever platform you are listening to. You want to send us a line on Twitter, that works as well. So from myself, Ryan Roberts, Mr. David Turner, signing off here for Mavs Sports Takes episode 4. See you all next week. Same time, same place. Thank you all.
Thanks, everybody. Thanks, Ryan.